Is the biggest concern takeaway from all this that they were protecting a lead and Notre Dame went 96 yards when they were back, you know, needing to go the entire route?
Yeah, that you had to feel good when Mirko pinned them back to the 4 yard line because the defense had played great, and you figure they're going to drive 96 yards, and yet they did, and it was a good mix of throwing and running. I thought Notre Dame fell in love with Audric Estime a little bit too much, and for Sam Hartman to have put up such big numbers in the first 4 games for them, and then just kind of be there in this game and not really the focal point of this game. And it wasn't even because Ohio State was sacking him or putting him behind and down in distance. They got okay pressure, but not even really very good pressure, I didn't feel. Notre Dame picked up the blitz package. It seemed like every time Ohio State brought a fifth rusher, or ran a zone blitz, they seemed like they picked it up. So I was somewhat astounded that Sam Hartman didn't have a better, bigger game. But it kind of goes back to what I said at the onset. I don't have the all-22 tape. Maybe Kevin got a chance to see it in this game. But the coverages from Ohio State had to be out of this world because nobody other than their tight end caught more than one pass, I think. I mean, maybe somebody had two, but I think the tight end had several. One other guy may have had two, and nobody else caught more than one. And these were guys that all put up big numbers in the first 4 games. Merriweather, Tyree, Thomas, none of them got off in this game. And I think that's a tribute to what Burke and Hancock and Igbinosun in particular, those 3 guys did. Probably, the top 3 tacklers, I think, were Ransom, Proctor, and Stiles, the safeties. They were great in run support and never let the big play happen. And I think that was part and parcel of how Ohio State won this game, I think.
Seems like every time I see an ISO on Igbinosun, he's got both hands on the guy's shoulders and he's practically ripping him to the turf.
But Jim Knowles has told us he likes that aggressiveness, and he's not going to tell him to do anything differently other than just.
They can't call it every play.
Trust your technique. Yeah, they can't call it every play, and we know that. But yeah, overall, I think defensively, the concern. This was not the best game for the linebackers. They had some issues there, but I also thought Notre Dame did a really, really good job scheming them up and using the tight ends, using the open zones, and just moving the ball. And this is kind of the trade-off when Jim Knowles goes from a high octane, high impact defense that he brought last year to dialing it back a little bit to make it a little bit safer and to require offenses to go down the field. Sometimes they go down the field and it takes a while. And so it's a trade-off that clearly, if you give up 14 points to Notre Dame at home, you should expect to win just about 95% of those games. And so I think this is a positive step forward, even though it is a concern because the defensive line was tired. And if Notre Dame continues to run the ball with their running backs rather than Sam Hartman holding it on one and getting tackled by JT Tuimoloau and then throwing it on another. Like, if they would have just kept running the ball, I think they win that game, but they didn't. And so they have to kind of own that as well. But yeah, I think there are still concerns defensively, but when you have JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer play the entire game, Tyleik Williams played over 50 snaps for the second week in a row. Like, these are unprecedented times, unprecedented numbers for those guys. And yet they still made plays at the end. So credit to them for doing that. But now they'll be dialing it back a little bit or quite a bit now, but it's still something to watch. And I wonder how much of that has to do with, Ohio State's nose tackle is 280 pounds, Mike Hall, like things like that. How much does he wear down? And it's a concern, but if you give up 14 points a game, that would be the best at Ohio State in a while.
Yeah, because one of the keys to this game, I thought, was going to be putting pressure on Hartman. And I guess I go to this well way too often about when are these guys going to show up, Sawyer and JTT? And I know that they have in spots, but consistently for a big game that they're going to just be wreaking havoc in that backfield. And no, it was more like Hartman had time, but hey, they played a zone. If I saw another Notre Dame receiver just run about 4 yards, turn around and go like that, catch the ball, it's going to be like, well, I'm looking up at the scoreboard. It's still on a 0 into the third quarter. And I'm thinking, it seems like they can play pitch and catch all day, but they're not scoring. So I guess it's working.
And I still think this is a good experience overall for the defense and the safeties. I don't think we can say enough good things about the safeties, the way they stepped up and helped out the linebackers who were struggling. They were part of that running attack. But when you give up 176 yards rushing, I think that's a bit of a concern. I don't think anybody expected Notre Dame to rush more yards than they passed. There's enough there to be concerned with, and you'll have to get it fixed by Penn State. And, not that Penn State's running the ball well. Michigan's not running the ball exceedingly well right now, but they do a lot of the same things that Notre Dame does, that Notre Dame is going to see how they had success. Like Penn State, Michigan are going to watch to see how Notre Dame had success and say, okay, let's do that. Like when you're watching Notre Dame throw the ball to the tight ends and they're having success, Michigan does that on steroids. So there are some concerns that come out of this game for sure.
Yeah, those prolonged drives. I mean, again, Ohio State trying to get its opponent off the field on third down. I mean, once again, we see that. I don't have the box score in front of me to know what the numbers were for the run of the game, but one of the things I'm going to remember is that Ohio State kept Notre Dame off the board the entire first half and half of the third quarter. I mean, again, when you're looking at a 17-14 game, we're not talking about a ton of scores or anything like that. So there's a lot to like about what the defense did, but I think that it's good to have this game here week 4, have the open week, and be able to go and try some things out before you do draw Penn State, and certainly before you draw Michigan at the end of the season, to have some things maybe available to you because you have faced it. I mean, and it's different with Notre Dame played 5 different backs, but it's not a 1-2 punch the way that Penn State has Allen and Singleton, and the way that Michigan has Corum and Edwards.
Hey, Steve, what did you think of so Notre Dame scores that first touchdown? It comes right after Ohio State's touchdown drive where Marvin Harrison gets injured. How much do you think that took out of Ohio State's sales that led to that drive?
Yeah, I mean, Marvin had gone into the tent and they had the ball so long that he went into the tent, and Braden Moles from Buckeye Sports Bulletin was sitting right next to me, and the tent's over here, and he's got his binoculars on the tent for the entire 5 or 6 minutes that, he's in there, and he gets treatment. And the way his leg buckled on the television replay, it looked like this was going to be something serious. And thankfully, it doesn't seem like it is. He went in there, presumably got taped back up again, came out, was jogging down at the far end of the field while the game was going on. And Notre Dame held the ball long enough that he didn't miss a play, which is crazy. And he went back into the game. But I think that that long touchdown drive in Ohio State, I don't think they held it for very long when they got it back. They punted it back to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had another long touchdown drive, obviously, early in the fourth quarter. And I think the defense was starting to wear down a little bit. And, Notre Dame was just kind of methodically moving it down the field, 6-yard run, 7-yard pass to the tight end, and just kind of methodically moved it down the field and punched it into the end zone a couple times. And you could sense the momentum in the stadium was shifting. I mean, it was, they were being lifted up by their crowd, which was amazing. And they take the lead with 7 or 8 minutes to go in the game. And you're like, oh my goodness, they're going to steal this game.
You go round and round with that. And to Drowsy Dragon's question there about rotating guys on the defensive line, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because I have heard through the last several years, I'm sick and tired of Larry Johnson's rotation. I want to see 33 and 44 out there on the biggest plays. Well, the way that this was a fight in a phone booth, every play was a big play. So when are you really going to be able to make the substitutions? And I have to go back and watch the game for substitution patterns to see how much Notre Dame was subbing on offense. But did you have an opportunity to fly guys in and out? I don't know based on what kind of tempo Notre Dame ran. I haven't watched it for that type of situation, but I could just hear it now. And I'm not going to name any player specifically because I don't want to drag it to them. But if player X were out there and he was the one that he wasn't JT or Jack, and the play went right through his spot, the howls would be deafening about why wasn't JT or Jack out there at that point. So what's the happy medium, Drowsy? I don't know, but I think we're going to see a couple more games where we're going to see some more rotation, and the hope would be by the time they get to Penn State that there would be less drop off maybe between the ones and the twos, and that at that point you would be able to rotate a little bit more. But this also wasn't a case of Notre Dame having 90 offensive plays or anything like that. I mean, what both teams were in the 60s.
Yeah. There are a lot of message board favorite type guys. I saw one of the comments on this chat that Carnell Tate needs to be on the field. And that is an interesting take. Certainly, I mean, Fleming doesn't give you a ton of production, but he did catch a pass on fourth down. He does block for everybody else. He does all the little things that they want done. So, if they thought Carnell Tate or Xavier Johnson gave him a better chance to win, then they'd be on the field instead of Fleming. Flip side over on defense on our message board, everyone's all up in arms. They said Chambers didn't play a good game. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. I know that he was isolated and caught in coverage by the tight end on several of the catches, seemed to be in very good position. And on one of the plays, the tight end is like leaning back like this and makes a one-handed grab, and Chambers is draped all over him. I'm like, what do you want him to do? I mean, sometimes you have to tip your cap to the other guy that, they made a play. I didn't see him miss a lot of tackling in the run game to where I could say he didn't play well at linebacker. He and Tommy Eichenberg the week before against Western Kentucky were the two defensive stars of the game, both right around 8 or 9, 10 tackles. And so, everyone wants CJ Hicks to play. As it turned out, Cody Simon actually subbed in for Chambers on, I think, 10 plays. And he was also in the game 5 plays where they had 3 linebackers on the field. So I think that for whatever reason, the way I understand it, Simon subbed in for him on one series in both halves. Maybe that was something by design or where the ball was on the field that they felt, Cody Simon would be more of a physical presence against the run, I suppose. I don't know what the rationale was, but I didn't feel like Chambers played that poorly. And people are like, Hicks needs to play. And, before the season, Knowles said, I'm going to turn Hicks loose. I'm going to turn him loose. We got to turn him loose. He's great. 5-star recruit from last year's class out of Kettering Alter. Let's remember those 2 words, Kettering Alter. This wasn't Cincinnati St. Xavier or Cincinnati Moeller. This was Kettering Alter, Division III. And I just wonder if there's been a little bit of an issue making the jump from that caliber of football to the Big Ten for CJ Hicks, because the guy that they were going to turn loose played 11 plays last week against Western Kentucky, a game they led 42-10 at halftime. They're up 32 points at halftime. They won the game by, 53 points, and he got to play 11 plays and didn't play on defense at all in this game. So, people who are clamoring for this guy or that guy, trust me when I tell you, these coaches are making $1 million a year. A lot of the assistants and the head coaches now making 10. If they had anybody who was eligible in uniform who they thought would help them win a game and allow them to keep the job that is now paying them multi-millions of dollars, that person would be playing. Trust me, they are not holding people out who they think are better than the people who they've got on the field.
Put that on a t-shirt, Steve.
Yep.
That entire thing.
The front, back, side, inside of it, because that was a lot. But I agree with every word of it.
It's the Browns quarterback nameplate shirt, but I'm with you.